introduce our guest speaker, who hasn't had a shower for 2 weeks until recently. Our guest speaker is Jim Becker. He's going to talk about telehealth medicine or telemedicine and projects that he's been working on. He's working with Rotary International, District 5000, and I'm going to let him take the floor. Jim, we received your PowerPoint, and I think that we can throw it up for you.
Oh, you're going to do it for me, huh? Okay.
No, I'm not. So I got great help here.
Oh, okay. I thought
my technological skills on Zoom are still in the infancy stages.
Well, I know everything falls back on Doug Adams. He's our assistant DG and answers all or solves all our problems, I guess. So I'm glad you're here, Doug. But who should I pull my PowerPoint? Oh, okay. He's
going to do it.
All right, great.
And I think all you need to do is tell him when you want to move it.
Yeah. All right, that's a good place to start. Thank you, President Lorraine. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm guessing that there's about 30 minutes here. I will try not to run on. And, you know, unlike other speakers, I'm okay if somebody has a question about something. And I know in some cases there are several members of your club, and including Doug, I know he's not a member, that are knowledgeable about international service projects. But I'm going to talk sort of fundamentally and about a global telemedicine project that we're currently conducting in Nepal. And it's a global grant. It's a VTT, we call it, Vocational Training Team. That's where you train individuals on specific tasks. In this case, we brought 6 doctors from Nepal. We brought them over to the San Francisco Bay Area, where our nonprofit, it's Global Offsite Care, is headquartered. And we have a professor of medicine, a wonderful doctor, Dr. Jim Good. And his name is Jim, and the treasurer in our organization is Jim, and I'm Jim. And since moving to Hawaii, because we get on these Zoom calls and someone says, well, what do you think, Jim? And there's 3 of us speaking up. So someone called me chemo, and it sort of stuck. So I used the name chemo. So that's Chemo Jim. So anyway, that explains that. But your club has contributed to global grants before. And by the way, your club has, I didn't check the number, but I think it's over $2,000 in what we call district designated funds, DDF. So I'll make reference to that. And that's where your club has to, in order to contribute to a global grant, you use those district designated funds, DDF, but you have to put up dollars to match them. And then those dollars that your club puts up are matched by DDF, and the World Fund, that's the Rotary Foundation, matches that. So it's a 3-to-1 today. So next slide. And the gentleman that I'm speaking with is Gary Wong. He is past president of Rotary International, I think 2013, 2014. And he was the chair of the Rotary Foundation last year. He's from Taipei, and you know the Rotary convention is going on in June this year. And that's because Gary, he is a real go-getter. I mean, Gary gets things done. So this was an opportunity for me to explain to Gary exactly what our global telemedicine platform is all about. And so he's very knowledgeable. And by the way, the Rotary Foundation just endorses our projects. We have several global grants and district grants going on right now. And, you know, it's because of the pandemic, our telemedicine platform is just booming. So anyway, I'll talk more about that. This gives a little history of my experience, including managing Rotary grants for the last 20 years. I'm on the international service team, and part of our responsibility on that district committee is to encourage other clubs to contribute and participate into global grants. So part of my program today will hopefully encourage your club to consider contributions, and I'll talk about some of the projects that we have got that we're cooking. Also, my international travel, my 78th country was Cuba last year, and 79th was India. But I would love to do a project in both of those countries, including North Korea. I have a friend. I've worked with the Rotary Club of Shanghai in China and done a number of projects in China. There's a past district governor that's developing a relationship with North Korea. Projects like bringing musical instruments to the children in North Korea. So nothing, peace projects, because remember, Rotary International, we're a peace organization, number one. And number two, our obligation is, or our accountability is to help others, especially women and children in disadvantaged countries. That's what Rotary does internationally. All right, next slide. So in a what we call a VTT, vocational training team, that's part of the global grants. Clubs contribute to those projects. So in this case, our host club is Jawalakhel in Kathmandu, Nepal. So that's where our project was located. And then in my former district, 5130, the Rancho Cotati Club. And you can see other clubs contributed. Next slide. And, we also had several clubs here from District 5000. Next slide. Contribute. So just exactly what our telemedicine projects include. We have about 22 hospitals. We work directly with hospitals, and we provide them some basic equipment here, like a laptop and a webcam, and we give them a 1-year Zoom. We give them the Pro account, which is confidential, so they can use it to talk among themselves or interact with their patients. Now, one of the key elements is our low-cost robot, and that's what we call a KUBI. Next slide. So this is the KUBI, and there's a couple docs here that use them. So what it is it's like an iPad that sits on a small little tower, and it revolves. It can go up and down, and you can control it with the Zoom app. And by the way, the founder of Zoom helped us get the app within the Zoom so that we could run the KUBIs. So we were kind of on the basic level of getting that started. But in the right slide, I'm actually in that photo. So if you can understand, this is in a ICU of a pediatric hospital. And that doctor can set that KUBI right there next to the patient, and it can interact. The doctor's face would be on the screen when they're speaking, and the doctor on his side can see the patient. And it can spin around. It can actually zoom in. That's i.e. the Zoom app. So we call it a low-cost app or low-cost robot. And this total cost with the iPad is about $1,400, depending on the cost of the iPad. The KUBIs are manufactured here, and we can pretty much ship them anywhere in the world on DHL. But the iPads we try to buy locally. We try to buy all the tech equipment in the country we're working with, in this case, Nepal. So anyway, low-cost robot. We're the ones that are kind of behind that, and it's very, very effective. Especially doctors want to see their patients. So when they go home at night, they could set the KUBI next to the patient in an ICU, and they can pull that up. And most of these doctors sleep, 4 hours, 5 hours. They're just used, that's their lifestyle. So this has worked out really well. Next slide, please. So our global telemedicine team visited Nepal November 3, well, last November, before the pandemic started. Next slide. And this was our agenda. So the one thing I want to stop and say at this point, our district governor, Naomi, has identified Nepal as a signature location for projects, global grants. So we're cooking right now, we're cooking up 3 global grants, 2 of which are equipment in hospitals, and 1 which is an educational training program. And it's our intent and Naomi's intent to lead a group. Now, it's all based on, the pandemic and the restrictions of travel, but she wants to go next spring, somewhere between late February to, I would say, early May. So the intent is to take a group to Kathmandu and go to Nepal and go visit the projects that our district has developed. And remember, when the global grants, the way they work, there's 2 clubs. There's the host club in the service area, in this case would be in Nepal, and they do the heavy lifting of global grants. So they're the ones that have the responsibility of purchasing the products or providing the services, and then they host us when we, as a club that's coming over. So like if your club was an international sponsor and either contributed or started a global grant, you would have a host club in that, typically a third world country. So that's the relationship. So this group hosted us, and you can see our agenda. So we had 6 doctors that came for training in the San Francisco Bay Area, and each represented a different hospital. So you can see our agenda different days. We visited the various hospitals, and we did what we call project launches. So we got them involved in the communication, and now these hospitals interact with each other. So I'll talk more about that expansion. Next slide. So we were greeted at the airport, and they give the traditional, it's a different kind of lei, but it is a fresh flower, it's a local flower. The 2 individuals on the right-hand side is the Rotarian, they're all Rotarians. Everyone's a Rotarian here. He's the general manager of Nepal National Hospital. And next to him is Sonika, and she's our intern. And I've been to Nepal 3 times, and she's on the ground making arrangements, making appointments, helping me get around and do the projects. The next gentleman, dark clothing, is Dr. Prakash. He's the leader of the VTT. He runs Nepal National Hospital. He is a medical doctor, just a great one. And he's starting a new Rotary club in Kathmandu. It's all healthcare professionals, if you can believe that. He's got something like 40 in this club. So he's just a tremendous guy. By the way, our past president, Mark Maloney, was supposed to meet us in Nepal to take a look at our projects. So we got him interested in Nepal, and he met Dr. Prakash online on a Zoom meeting, and he invited him to be on the virtual convention. So Dr. Prakash was one of the leaders. If you went to the convention, that was at like 3 a.m., I think. Dr. Prakash was the leader. And then to my right is Dr. Jim Good. He is our medical director. And then the next 2 are from India. They were part of our team. And the president of Global Telemedicine is Michael Cook. Next slide. So we started off with in the Institute of Medicine. And that, how's my time, Lorraine? Am I okay? I guess I'm all right. Okay. We started off, this Institute of Medicine is a campus-style hospital About 1,100 beds. It's the primary government hospital, and our team went in and introduced the telemedicine platform. One of the things we had to do, next slide, is to train the IT staff. So on the left is our IT guy that is a local that we went through a training, and he's just setting up the KUBI. And we're passing over the starter kit to them, and we're introducing it to the administration and the medical staff. So basically what we do is we offer weekly and monthly training. We have what we call global grand rounds, where we'll take a patient case, and most all of these cases now are about COVID-19. So we've developed in Nepal a COVID-19 hotline as a result of this global grant. And Dr. Prakash is leading that, but also Dr. Pradeep. We have two Rotarians. Dr. Pradeep represents the Institute of Medicine, and both of them are just awesome Rotarians. And, you know, I'll tell you, the doctors like this that are, I call them 5-star Rotarians. They're medical doctors, they're taking care of patients, they're Rotarians, they're doing Rotary projects, and they're great people. And I don't know how they do it, but they all sleep about 4 or 5 hours and work 12, 15 hours a day. And that's who we have sort of leading our effort on telemedicine. Next slide. And this is a little map of Nepal. Now, this particular hospital, Jumla, is located in the rural part of Nepal. And let me just talk a little bit about Nepal. Nepal has a mortality rate in the city of Kathmandu or Kathmandu Valley. The mortality rate is above 65 years of life. In the rural parts of Nepal, the mortality rate is in the 50s. And if you remember on the upper right-hand side, if you look at the map, that's the Himalayas. And at about 2 o'clock is where Mount Everest is. And I'll show you Mount Everest a little later. But there's a lot of Nepalese that live in the base of the mountain, around 10, 12,000 feet. There's no medical service for them. And by the time they get down to civilization, you know, they've got serious problems. So on my 3 visits to Nepal doing projects for telemedicine, I've heard continually, we need to help those individuals in the rural part of Nepal. And Jumla is our first step in doing that because it's located in the northwestern side of Nepal, up in the sort of the Himalayas, about 10, 12,000 feet. We have a wonderful hospital that has Wi-Fi, and that's the ingredients to make this work. So when we get patients that, let's just say, have the COVID-19 up in Jumla, we now have a hotline where they can communicate directly with the doctors in Kathmandu. So there is some of that going on. And if it's a desperate situation, then they appeal to the government to helicopter those individuals down to Kathmandu to save their life. Next slide, please. So the model hospital is a private hospital. So in Nepal, they've got private and public. It's a very interesting arrangement. Everyone has to pay their own health care. It's not a free ride. It's not a socialist. It's a very, I don't want to use the word corrupt. That's too strong. But in these third world countries, corruption is a primary situation. Dr. Coben on the left started using his cell phone in rural areas to communicate and save lives. He is sort of the inventor of telemedicine for Nepal. He's the one that inspired part of this project to work. He's the gentleman on the left. And in the model hospital, we're we're congratulating them. We're having this project launch. So you can see how happy everyone is that we're there helping them. And what we do is we introduce 3 components. Training is part of what we do. We have global grand rounds on a weekly and monthly basis. And then doctor to doctor, we call it teleconsult is what we do. And then number 3, we provide the KUBIs and certain technology, Zoom and that sort of thing to help them better communicate with their patients. Next slide, please. So this Gangalal Heart Institute is very special to me because I started my first visit to Nepal. I started with a project there through that heart center. And this is recognized as one of the best cardiology hospitals in Nepal and certainly in the whole general area. And we have them on board. This is about an 800-bed facility. So we provided them a couple of KUBIs because they have multiple ICUs. So, and we like to put at least 1 KUBI in the ICU so the docs can communicate back and forth. Next slide. I'm moving as fast as I can. Of course, on a visit to Nepal, we have to go and see our host club. So this was the host club that supported us. By the way, in the right photo, the gentleman in the center with the sunglasses on is the president, who is blind. And he was very accommodating. He works in healthcare. So this is a healthcare oriented club, and they've been wonderful hosts. Next slide, please. Our cultural side. So if any members of your club consider not only contributing to our global grants that we're putting together for Nepal, but also visiting with us, if we can, next spring, this is an example of what we do. Now, I mentioned Sonika. She arranged an airplane ride over Mount Everest. It was breathtaking. We were in, what do you call it? Big props, airplane. I want to say 78 passengers, but we only had like 34. So each one of us got a window seat. So what happened is they went down and over the Himalayas, about a 20-minute ride from Kathmandu, banked back, and then went right by Mount Everest. So it was amazing. I just never forget. And I have a photo in my home here of, and that is Everest on the left. And anyway, and then on the right, that's an ancient temple. I think it's about 600-700 AD. But you see it's got the elephants out front. And they tell me that it's still used occasionally. But there's so many earthquakes in Nepal that I think they've restricted most of these temples, they're holding them up so they don't fall down, built of wood and they're ancient and charming. So next slide.
Excuse me, Jim, you have about 2 minutes.
Oh my God.
Questions, yeah.
I'm so sorry. Let's
No
go to the next
problem.
slide then. I get so excited about this. That's part of the cultural. Next slide, please. This is something, this was a cultural thing where, like a burial, but in this case, they actually take the body and they incinerate them in front, and we're sitting over to the right of this water thing that's not very clean. But I just wanted to show you this as part of the cultural part of Nepal. They're very, very, they're very traditional in a lot of the things they do, and this is something that is very typical. Next slide. And just a little bit more of this. On the right is Kathmandu, and this is just another temple, another example of part of the cultural stuff. And I think we're done. Next slide. Yeah, I just wanted to show you, this is the countries that we have our project set up in. And we're very, very pleased that we do all our projects in our various countries with Rotary clubs. That's the way we work. And then I'm part of that in trying to coordinate and set up global grants and district grants and that. So with that, Lorraine, do I have a question or two, or no time for that? Or?
You have time for about 2 questions.
All right, mahalo.
Any questions, folks?
Jim, this is Junichi.
Junichi.
Thank you very much for a nice talk. My question is, if this project is mainly for the providing the equipment for the telemedicine and the communication tools, and it is supposed that medical care is to the patient is given by the doctor who reside in the same country as the patient lives?
Yes, that's correct. So are you concerned about privacy, Junichi? Is that your question?
No, I just wonder if, for example, the doctors in the United States will see the patient in Nepal. It just kind of happen.
We don't really do that. We do teleconsult. So like our Dr. Jim Good would take a call. Doctor to doctor is a different situation. Doctor to patient, that's where the privacy occurs. So when a doctor from Nepal calls about a case, it's considered almost hypothetical. You know, how would you treat that? So it's a discussion on different practices. So it's more of an educational discussion. That's what we do in teleconsult. So we don't get into, direct doctor to patient. That relationship is directly with that doctor and that patient, just like here in the United States.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, Junichi. Great to see you. What else?
Kimo, quick question. What is the life expectancy of the equipment that's given?
Well, I would say at least 5 years, 5 to 10 years. But, when you consider a country like Nepal, I like to also talk about GDP, gross domestic product. It's about $1,000 or about $1,200 a year. So the people in Nepal are living on about $100 a month. Here in Hawaii, our GDP last year, I checked it for the state of Hawaii, so in the mid 50,000s. Now we have tourists and all that help raise that. But if you can imagine living in this country, and that's the median, that's the average, on $100 a month, it's scary. So this country is at the bottom end of the economic scale. They're in about the low 5 to 10% of the countries, the lowest economic countries in the world. And this country is just a tremendous country because of the people's culture and the way, if you go with us, Junichi, we'd love to have you. You would really meet these people that are just fascinating. So, I just think that's when you understand what we're doing, when we spend $1 in a country where the GDP is about $1,200 a year, that dollar is so much stronger than what we do here in our country. So think about going global. I would be more than happy to help your club initiate a project or even contribute to the global grants that we have available in the district. Much mahalo for allowing me to speak.
Okay, thank you. Well, I see the time is at 8 o'clock. Thank you, Jim, for the presentation. I've got some takeaways that go with this, so thank you so much.